Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another exciting edition of BIER HALL FREITAG. On BIER HALL FREITAG, we do things a little bit different. We read several of your comments to promote the vibrant atmosphere of a beer hall. Mr. Goat just ran off. He's very upset, but don't worry, Mr. Goat. I've got one for you right here. Like with a regular show, we'll talk about the tennis, but again, to experience the beer hall atmosphere, we'll have several of your comments, much more comments than we would do on a normal show.
2, 3, 4.
So we'll jump right in. It is BIER HALL FREITAG after all. In honor of the great Swiss-German culture, we do BIER HALL FREITAG right here because we really do like that Swiss-German fellow, und die Schweiz, Mr. Roger Federer. This is from Dennis Daly. Is Novak as good as he was? I think he is not quite at that level, or perhaps the others have improved, hopefully. Novak or Anderson versus Fed in the final. Well, I think it's pretty likely we will get Novak or Anderson in the final, and I have an ESPN article, I can't remember who wrote it, but we'll get credit them when we get to it later in the show, that basically says if anyone's going to spoil our final match of the year between Federer and Djokovic, they didn't think it was Sasha Zverev. They didn't think it was Sasha Zverev who would do it. They thought it was Kevin Anderson who could mess up the big final party. But for Dennis's question, is Djokovic as good or better than... I mean, he won 2 majors this year. Rafa and Roger for the last couple years have been exchanging the majors. Djokovic got 2 in a row. I mean, clearly, he's definitely playing very well. And I think what it is the fact that maybe he is better. I think he's getting better. And it might not be so obvious because we think of Djokovic, fighting through the hard moments. He's so tough mentally and can fight through so many tough moments in matches. And I think you don't see that as much. I mean, we still see it, obviously. He still roars when he crushes his opponent in the long rallies. It's a big deal to him. We definitely saw it at the U.S. Open. How about the way he beat Rafa at Wimbledon? I think we just don't see as many of those points because he doesn't rely on those points as often now. I think Novak, his serve is so much better than it used to be. And obviously, this year's weird because the first half of the year, he had a totally different service motion, which ironically, I tried that same motion because I noticed I could get more pop on my serve, and Novak could get more pop, although he was doing it not for pop, but because he was putting less strain on his elbow with this abbreviated motion. And one thing I noticed with this motion, I felt like I could get more power, but I couldn't kick the ball, and I just couldn't hit the spots as well because it was a different motion, and Novak couldn't hit his spots, and we know at this high of a level, you're better off like Federer, a little less power, but hitting great spots very regularly. Novak didn't have that in his game early in the year, and you saw what it did. When you take the way he has been serving lately and put it with his return game, he's almost unbeatable. Next up, we got a comment from Susan Jones. She said a lot of great stuff, but to save time today, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Let me just pick out a couple little things for you. First off, Dominic Thiem's, not his underwear, but his shorts. I felt great for Fed, but bad for Dominic Thiem after Fed beat Thiem, who's not only dealing with a really bad haircut, but also apparently with shorts a size too small for him. During the match with Fed, he kept getting wedgies. Jim Courier commented that Thiem was having an issue with his shorts, which could have shrunk in the wash. Matt, you're so entertaining. I enjoy your videos. Skip that part. I do like that part. I have a hard time watching Isner. Every time I see him on a tennis court, he looks out of place like he should be playing basketball. A guy that tall is going to have a huge serve, but there's no way he's going to move very fast. There are plenty of 6'6" guys who can move well, but Isner is almost 7 foot. Anderson is one of the 6'6" guys who can really move, and he'll be playing Fed next. Which takes me to another comment from Sir Richie-san. I'm afraid Anderson is going to blast through Roger. Hope I'm wrong, though. Oh, thank God you were wrong. Orkschnitzel. Gotta read a Deutscher comment on BIER HALL FREITAG. Love your analysis. Weiter so. Some comments are profound. Other comments are like this one from Nikhil Bagda, commenting just to make you happy. Nothing here to say. Thank you, because seriously, that's what's going to help me grow the show. That's what helps me maybe interest advertisers and sponsors on the show, which would make it a real job for me, so I wouldn't have to worry about doing other jobs to survive, and I could focus all my energy here. Comments below make this look like a successful YouTube channel and definitely helps me grow it. Even comments like that one, which is basically just a vote of confidence. Thank you, helps me keep things going here. Not just thinking that maybe I can have a successful business out of this one day, but feeling like what I'm doing actually matters. From Interi, one of my very special friends. Again, a super show. I'm only going to read the end of this because this is part of what I want to talk about today. The only player I can see, and then we're going to look at a couple highlights later also for you highlight people out there. We're going to look at a few highlights, not a lot today, because I want to point out a couple things about the two people playing our favorites, the world's favorites in the semifinals, Djokovic and Federer. Who are they going to play? We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between those two players. But this is big. The only player I can see that can challenge Djokovic most is Kevin Anderson. Nobody else, to be quite honest. Kevin has a huge serve with powerful groundies, takes time away from Djokovic in a similar way like Kachanov did in Paris, sure did. And that game can threaten everybody, Djokovic as well. And I got 3 more comments that we'll do towards the end of the show. So let's talk about Kevin Anderson. So this ESPN article I got, let's go to it because I agree with Intieri. Oh, and by the way, I have one really big thing about court speed. I'll talk to you right after we look at this article. With a big game and healthy toenails, Kevin Anderson can win the Tour Finals. This past July, during a grueling run to the Wimbledon final, Kevin Anderson lost 4 toenails. So we all know what happened with that very brutal John Isner-Anderson semifinal at Wimbledon after the big win for Kevin Anderson, beating Roger Federer for the first time in his career. Don't forget that. Only time. It turns out, according to this article, that now I've lost a toenail playing tennis before, and it definitely it doesn't help you play better or move better. But during Wimbledon, according to this article, Kevin Anderson lost 4 toenails. I can tell you from experience, losing 1 toenail from tennis and then having to play more tennis with the toenail gone doesn't help at all. I imagine losing 4 is a pretty big deal. And I think we can't say enough about that. Kevin Anderson is in a, Nishikori lost so bad to Anderson, and I kind of didn't think he could beat Dominic Thiem. I'd always say Nishikori over Thiem on a fast indoor court, but I had this hunch that Thiem could knock him out because, one, Thiem is fighting just to get 1 win to avoid being totally shut out at the World Tour Finals, which is embarrassing to these guys. I feel kind of bad for Isner, who played pretty well and doesn't have much to show for it. I had this feeling that Dominic Thiem was going to be a little hungrier and fight a little harder, and Nishikori a little more shaken after the loss. And as injured as he is, wouldn't surprise me to say like, oh, he's hiding a little injury that popped up that normally he would pull out of the tournament, but because it's this special World Tour Finals tournament, he's going to stick around, and maybe that's why it's such a bad. So I didn't have much faith in him after the Anderson bagel and a breadstick. It's taken Anderson a long time to reach his peak, and at age 32, he says he is taking inspiration from the likes of Federer. Kevin Anderson has been so impressive to me because he has continued to work and develop his game into his 30s. That's not a very common thing. It's maybe more common to us now because we've watched Nadal and Djokovic, Murray, even Roger Federer kind of evolve their games in their 30s. So it seems commonplace, but typically you don't see a whole lot of that on the ATP World Tour. By the time the players get to the tour, a lot of stuff is kind of stuck that way, and those are their strokes. And ultimately, I do feel like Anderson is tougher at this tournament this year than Sasha Zverev. So I do believe what this ESPN article is saying, not just because Anderson is going to feel a lot fitter out there. Maybe he'll be a little hurt by the Federer loss, but you can't be too hurt by that. He's Roger Federer. Maybe that will hurt him a little. And I'm not saying he's going to win, but I feel like he does have a chance to challenge Djokovic. And of course, Sasha Zverev is a real talent. But let's look at some highlights, and I'll say one thing about Sasha. When Sasha lost, and keep in mind, Sasha, I think it was 4-all in the first set against Djokovic. Sasha Zverev hit a really good lob that only missed by about this much on break point at 4-all to serve for the first set. I see Sasha as a little mentally fragile, and I feel like if he was serving for that first set, he was more likely to hold. But instead, as we see on the tour so commonly, not with the best players as much, the big four don't do it so much, but everyone else seems to do it a lot. When you have a tough game and almost break, but don't break, it's pretty common to get broken in the next game because of the letdown, the mental, the air comes out of the balloon. Mr. Goat, are you going to come enjoy BIER HALL FREITAG with me? He's over there just watching. So the thing about after the Djokovic loss, Sasha went to the press room and said that he's not 100%. The tennis year is just way too long. And to be honest, he's, not feeling his best and not able to play his best. And that's a bad sign to me. Even though he qualified and had some good matches here and he's in the semis, that is not a good attitude. And if that's what goes into his head after that loss, when he loses his serve perhaps to Roger in the first set and stuff like that's in his head, I'm not going to bet anything on him having a chance to win that match. And I'm going to go with Roger. Point out that he does have 2 wins over Roger, but 2016, I think at Halle, on grass, 2016, might have been Stuttgart, one of the two. 2016, Roger's coming off of the knee surgery. lost to Raonic at Wimbledon, so not too surprised by that. And, of course, last year in Canada, Roger's back was out. I mean, that was nice of Roger to finish that match. I think a lot of players would have just quit right there, but it was a final, and it's Federer, and he knows people are there to see a big show. But I don't count that either, so I don't see any reason to believe why he can win. But, of course, I said David Goffin had no chance last year, and we know what happened with that at the semifinal stages. I'll say one more thing before we look at the highlights and compare Anderson and Zverev. It's nice to know that Roger got the really bad match on the very beginning of the round-robin stages rather than in the semifinals. You know, the last match last year was the bad one. Hopefully it's only the first match that's the bad one for Federer this year. Look where Novak Djokovic is. Djokovic clearly understands how to play indoor tennis and stay up on the baseline. When we looked at the highlights of Dominic Thiem and Roger Federer, you could see that there's not a lot of sense of urgency to move up. And I see the same thing with Sasha. With Kevin Anderson, I saw Roger force Kevin back at times, but I also saw Kevin making an effort to take the ball earlier and not get pushed back and be so happy to just sit back there and let tennis happen to you, rather than making things happen on the court yourself. And this point is a great example. He's drifting back further, and then look at how that angle just opens up. This court is too fast. Now, you will see points where Djokovic might hang back for a while, but he's much better at containing even on a fast court, although that's not going to work. That's why I feel like Roger could have a good chance here. Let's look at a few more highlights, and then we'll talk about more about why I think Roger has a good chance to beat Djokovic if we do get that match. Now, this right here is a point where Sasha moves in, but the only problem is he's not very good at the net, so he's kind of in a tough spot with that. And we saw Roger take advantage of bringing Anderson in and giving him tough volleys. And Anderson's been volleying better this week than Sasha, so that I just don't see how Roger's not going to be able to do that same thing with success to Sasha. Now, here's an example. Roger was very good, and most of the time he passes him there.
Oh, that's delightful stuff. The drop shot could not have been played any better. And the follow-up wasn't too shabby either.
There's that oil painting of a backhand that is so synonymous with the monogrammed maestro.
Most of the time, Roger is hitting balls right at Kevin Anderson, and you saw these jammed up, like, no space volleys from Anderson. God, what a backhand. Now look at Kevin Anderson. He is hugging that baseline, doing his job. Right here, he's on the baseline. He's hitting a deep ball. Roger manages, though, to float him back with that backhand and does the same thing. Yeah, good night, baby. Roger did the same thing we saw Djokovic do, except Alexander Sasha Zverev, he was just hanging back there and letting it happen. Anderson was resisting it, and even though Roger, it seemed like he got a little jammy on his backhand, he managed to hit it right into, we saw it with Dominic Thiem. Roger would return kind of into the body of Dominic Thiem a lot. Roger is hitting balls into these big guys or guys who are going to hang back anyways. I think it's going to work well against Sasha. Again, look at Anderson, very disciplined about staying on the baseline. He knows it's what he needs to do, but slowly Roger's able to work him back. And if Sasha is going to hang back there, Roger's going to be able to come to net and hit those short volleys that just kill you way more often than you'll see Novak Djokovic do that. Short ball brings him in.
Oh, that's cheeky.
I mean, these big guys are not going to be maneuverable at net to pull that off. And real quick, let's look at this point one more time because I love how Roger gets kind of jammed up there.
Oh, that's delightful stuff.
And that point is just so great to me because Roger kind of gets jammed up, and instead of trying to force a forehand, he turns it into a drop shot and then sets himself up with a beautiful pass. So, why do I think Roger's going to have an even easier time pulling off this win? Because against not only Sasha, but I think Roger will have a better chance. This is a more favorable court than Paris now for Roger against Djokovic if we get that match. Because look at the court speed. We showed you earlier in the week. Remember, courts speed up. Take a look at this. 34.7 was the speed here. Much slower than last year and the year before, above 42. And we saw that I think 34.6 was the Paris Masters this year court speed. Some courts wear down faster than others, and this one seems to be wearing down pretty quick. The older hard courts, there's a lot of hard courts around where I live where they haven't been kept up, but they play ridiculously fast as they're grinded down to nothing. Look what happened to the courts here at the ATP World Tour Finals. Lots of doubles matches happening, lots of singles matches. And this is from Thursday morning, I think. So there's been a whole day of matches today. Court could be even faster tomorrow when we see these matches on Saturday. Samstag. 40.3. Maybe it'll be at 42 by tomorrow. Who knows? It's speeding up pretty fast. It's sped up about 15% since Sunday when Roger was one of the first matches to go on this court. That is such a big deal. That is such a major factor here. I know Roger thought the bounce is a little high. I don't know if the bounce is lower now as the court speeds up, but faster court, Roger's going to be able to finish guys, especially like Sasha, who are going to hang back a lot behind the baseline too often because it's like a habit for them. Kevin Anderson not sticking with that. Kevin Anderson is fighting against that. He's trying to really be proactive on this court. And I don't know if Sasha's going to be able to do that throughout the whole match, at least. Maybe there'll be moments where he does. And again, he did a pretty good job challenging Djokovic. I feel like he was this close. That ball goes in. He breaks serve. He's serving 5-4. I don't know if he wins that match, but I think he would have won that first set if he had the confidence of, I broke him and now I'm serving at 5-4 versus I almost broke him and now I'm serving at 4-5. I think that's more of why he got broken. All right, that's it for us. Roll the music, the BIER HALL FREITAG music, and we're going to get out of here with 3 more comments. From Seifi, been commenting forever. Thank you, Seifi. Team will take the brunt like Birdman Berdych takes every time from Roger. This is what I said prior to the match, Matt, and see what happened. Anderson is next, and Fed Fury will kill and finish him tonight. First serve percentage will be devastating against Djoko. Wait and watch. Roger needs this 100th title. I agree. In Paris, first serve percentage pretty low for Roger. It shot up to like 70% against Djokovic. I think Roger can summon that again. From Wan Yun. Insipid. What an ass. I have a very big vocabulary, not modest, obviously, but don't love people who need to use it to be bi itchy, especially about someone who deserves their respect. I prefer the way you speak, Matt. And from the last video, this is from Eric West. I really like this comment. Love your sound, love your energy, and your GOAT choice, RF, your sport and your understanding of it. See ya! He really likes how I say, see ya. Sorry, I love that line. See ya!
What a mean mammoth they both are. Play that funk music, white boy.